Residents of a condo tower in Toronto are being faced with bills of more than $30,000 each, serving as a warning to those living in aging buildings. Joining us to talk about what you should know if you are a condo owner is real estate expert David Fleming. He's with the Bosley Real Estate Group. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. How are you doing?
Good. I'm interested to know sort of the expert opinion behind this story. It's a heartbreaking one. The high assessments levied against these Toronto residents were done so to pay for maintenance and repair on top of the $800 in condo fees that each of them pay a month. So when the condo unit owner is hit with an assessment for repairs, do they have a recourse in order to fight it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it depends on what you mean by recourse. So if we're talking, can the condo owners band together, approach the board of directors and say, we want a forensic accountant to come in, or we want to look at the finances, potentially look at a different avenue of how to spread this out over time? Yes, they have recourse. But if by recourse, do you mean can they just not pay it? Unfortunately not. And we have to remember that when you buy into a condo, you are buying your unit, but you're also buying into the condominium corporation. So you share in the risks and the rewards. So the rewards, of course, are many. You get the amenities and you have concierge and you have a gym and a pool. You also get to keep any profits you make if you sell the property. So the risk, of course, and there are many, specifically here, that if the condo falls into a state of disrepair or if there are financial shortfalls, you're part of that corporation. You have to make up the difference.
So according to a review done by the Canadian Condominium Institute, a condo unit owner needs to contribute about $2,000 a year to the condo corporation's reserve fund. That's in order to avoid underfunding. So should owners of older units expect to pay more to keep their reserve fund topped off?
Yes, they should. And typically when you look at older buildings, we always look at maintenance fees on a per square foot basis. And in 99% of condos, that's how they're apportioned, by how big your unit is, which of course is the fair thing to do. So if you look at older buildings, typically on a per square foot basis, their fees are higher. But let's not knock all older buildings here. We've got to be careful because there are some older buildings in the downtown core of Toronto where not only are you getting a lower price per square foot from an acquisition standpoint, it's, let's say, half to 2/3 of what it might cost for the same square footage in a new building. But there are some buildings that have very, very low maintenance fees, and that's a sign that these things were exceptionally well run over the last 30 or 40 years.
Well, that is a key point, and that plays into the first example we were talking about, is knowing the financial structure, knowing what needs to be done to the building, because if you're looking at a building that needs that much servicing that everybody's getting, almost $40,000 in bills, means that something wasn't managed correctly. So if someone is looking at a condo in an older building, what kinds of things do they need to consider before they decide to make an offer or not? What should they be looking at?
Well, any condo that you're looking at, whether it's old or new, you need to get a copy of the condominium status certificate, and that will give you all the financial information about the building. But it's also going to talk about lawsuits. It's going to talk about the reserve fund study. It's going to mention what expenditures they have. So most people just look at the reserve fund, and in a new building, brand new, usually there's not a lot of money in the reserve fund. In an older building, some of the buildings I've looked at lately have $4 or $5 million in the reserve fund, which is a lot of money. A new building might have $300,000, and you're building that up over time. So anytime, and I can't speak to this building specifically in the news story, because I don't know their finances, but anytime that you see an older building that has next to no money, or I've even seen a negative reserve fund, usually it's a sign that unfortunately they've mismanaged their finances or they've just had way too many repairs to keep up with.
Yeah, and those repairs are going to have to be paid for by somebody, and that could probably be you. Is it wise, David, to avoid buildings that have reached a certain age?
I don't think so, to be honest. As I said, we don't want to knock older buildings. I mean, one of my favorite buildings downtown is 25 the Esplanade. It's a building built in the 1980s, and for the longest time, they had among the lowest maintenance fees per square foot, not just of older buildings, but of any building on the east side and downtown. So why is that? Well, you've got to look at how they're managing their building's finances and what they're doing that other buildings aren't doing. So I don't think you square off of old buildings, but I think that you look at their maintenance fees, you look at their reserve fund, how much money is in it, and then some people get so specific. I had a client that was interested in an older building. They requested the minutes from the meetings of the condo board because they want to know what the condo board is actually talking about.
Smart.
And again, every building in the downtown core, or sorry, every building there is, you have a board of directors who's making the rules and the decisions. So sometimes you want to know who those folks are.
I know, that's really smart advice. And one of the pluses of older buildings, of course, especially in a city like Toronto, is there's just more square footage. Sometimes double, sometimes triple.
Yeah, exactly. Lower price per square foot.
All right, David Fleming, great to have your insight on this. Thanks so much.
For sure. Thanks for having me.